I promise you, Sarah, I have not been dating the Golden Bachelor. I would never do that to the ladies. And I'm sure any of the ladies out there who saw that would have just laughed it off. You get to this wonderful age where your tolerance for bullshit begins to decrease. And I don't think anybody leaves a marriage without thinking it through quite deeply. So I'm not sorry any of that stuff happened. It was a lot in a few short years, but I feel like I've come through it. I'm sure we'll pass the time. It'll go like that.
All right, great. You're all good?
I'm good.
Samantha Armytage, welcome back to Stella.
Sarah Lamarquand, it's nice to be back. It's been a while, huh?
It has been a long time. Quite a while since you and I sat down together, and you have been off screens for a little while as well, but you're about to return very soon with the Golden Bachelor. I'm going to tell you, I am really excited about this show. How are you feeling about it?
Well, I'm really excited too. Thank you for saying that. I think everyone's a bit excited about this show because it's not like anything we've ever seen before. This is something completely new for audiences, completely new for television. This has been huge worldwide, this franchise. And obviously it's the heritage brand that we all know and love, The Bachelor, that Channel 10 had for many years. And this is now being brought forward by Nine into the modern era with a different age group. So it's something completely new with people who have lived a life. So it's got real depth to it, this show. And you don't often say that about reality dating shows.
Well, I love it, and I want to talk to you in a moment about exactly that. So our inaugural Golden Bachelor, his life story, and then the contestants, and that life that they bring with them and that backstory. But before that, I actually just wanted to tell you a funny story. Well, I think it's funny because it was literally an April Fool's joke, Sam. April 2016, in a galaxy far, far away, before Stella or anything, I was editing national opinion editor for News Corp, and as an April Fool's joke, so 2016, The Bachelor, in its 20-something with the roses, is in its, I was going to say golden era, but I need a new word for
No, I
that
know
now
what you
because
mean,
it's
though.
about to go into its golden era.
Well, it's final
So-
throws, perhaps.
Exactly. So a headline gets published that day, April Fool's Day prediction from almost 10 years ago, Channel 10 to air The Bachelor, the senior years. Exclusive. Keen to capitalize on rating success enjoyed by The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. TV executives have announced a spin-off which will star love seekers aged over 65. So I did have that a little bit wrong. They're slightly older than some of our fabulous contestants in The Golden Bachelor. And then, of course, in the afternoon, as April Fool's Day tradition dictates, we posted an update. You guessed it, this was an April Fool's Day joke. Unfortunately, The Bachelor, the senior years, is nothing more than a figment of our imagination. There might be hope that the joke eventually becomes reality, however, with the network spokesperson telling us, sadly, there's no truth to this story, but it's a great idea. You might just be onto something. So apart from me wanting to get like a little cut from Bachelor producers internationally. Don't worry, I'm not going to hit you up for that. I love this. It felt like a really great idea, April Fool's Day joke or not. And here we are 9 years later.
It makes sense. It's funny that that was a joke in 2016 and now here we are. Although our people are in their 50s and 60s and Bear, the Golden Bachelor, is 61. But, why not focus on this group of people? This is a section of the community that has been ignored by television and by society for way too long. And we're dealing with boomers here who are, let's not forget, the original sort of rock and roll flower children. These ladies who we're now about to see on air were the wild girls of the 60s, and now they're grown up. It is the most wonderful, spectacular group of women, particularly. Bear is obviously wonderful, and we'll get to him later on, but these women are fantastic. They are in their power. They are beautiful. They are accomplished. They are funny. They've raised their children. Some of them are enjoying being grandparents. They're divorced or perhaps widowed. They didn't know when they went into their marriages 20, 30 years ago how life would turn out, which none of us do. None of us know what is coming for us in this life. So they found themselves in this position now in their 50s and 60s. And they're not ready to go out to pasture. They've still got so much living to do. I was so proud of them. They are so beautiful and accomplished that why haven't TV executives been making shows like this before?
It's also about visibility, isn't it?
Mm.
I don't think this show would ever have happened 10, 20 years ago because there was an assumption that, well, once you've sort of, you can have your dating story, you can have your origin story, and then happily ever after, tied up with the bow or not, or then you're the old maid or whatever terrible labels we have assigned to women throughout history, ancient history, and
Mm.
fairly recent modern history. The fact that we're allowed to see women in all areas of life, the visibility, the good, the indifferent,
Mm.
the complex. There's so much that it says about society and I mean, this is a bit glib, but what a great time to be a woman that's
Isn't
not
it?
just 25.
Absolutely. And as someone who's turning 50 next year, there are no real conversations these days like there were when you and I were younger journos out there about not seeing women over 50 on television. That just doesn't exist. We now are here and you need to deal with it. And I'm really glad that Channel 9, particularly in this case, is stepping into this, embracing it and making a show out of it, which I think people will enjoy. And this was huge in America. This was the number one show in America. The second season has just started a few weeks ago. So this is not going anywhere. And this is a group of people who are somewhat in their prime. They're really they've got these wonderful stories to tell. I mean, I'm not going to overstuff this turkey. It is a reality dating show. So it is all the things you expect from reality dating. It is hilarious. It is funny. It is silly. But it's also got heart, and I think that's because of Bear and these women who have lived a life. They've been through the ups and downs. They've experienced grief. They've experienced happy times. They've had great joy, but they know what they want now. They know what they won't put up with now, and that just makes for a more sort of rich show. And for me as the host, an opportunity to do what I love to do and what I think I do best, and that's storytelling. So this is kind of a really nice progression in my career too.
I wanted to ask about the storytelling aspect and the drama of it. As you say, it's reality TV. So on a spectrum of like Australian Story on one hand,
Okay.
through to dinner party scene at MAFS, how would you rate the melodrama of an episode of The Golden Bachelor on a scale from 1 to
It
10?
depends. It depends on the episode, but I think we fit somewhere. It's not maths, and that's not bagging maths because maths is a very important and brilliant show for the network, and I'd say we're somewhere in the middle because it's still got the reality dating aspects, but there is some really powerful stories there. There's some powerful storytelling, and there's a lot of heart. And I tell you, hand on my heart, that these women are not there for Instagram fame. They're really not. They are genuinely looking to meet someone. It does get harder as you get older. Let's face it. It really does. Um, and they are in it for the right reasons, and they're very open hearted. They're very brave, and I think it's a really it's got something for everybody. So I'd put us in the middle, perhaps between Mass and Australian Story. We're not pretending to be four corners here. It is reality dating. It's fun, and don't you need a bit of escapism at this point in the
Absolutely.
news cycle?
We've heard a bit about a couple of the contestants as you and I are speaking. Abby Chatfield's mum is going to be on the show. So there's a nice sort of full circle moment there
Mm,
in terms of Bachelor alumni reality
yes, and
TV.
Laura was wonderful. She's great. She's a firecracker like Abby. Love Laura.
Okay, that's all we need to hear there. Oh, great. And also, Bianca Dye, like a media
Mm,
personality. So I think the spectrum of stories sounds like it's quite broad as well because also from 50 to 66, that's a whole
mm.
different also generation
Oh,
because you do have, Gen X in
yes.
there as well. So the different experiences, I imagine, means that there's just so much to draw from. And I would imagine quite the dilemma for Bear because that's a fairly wide
Mm,
tapestry of
totally.
women
And,
there.
you know, if you put 20 women in a room anywhere, they're all going to be very different. And this is what, you know, as a woman, I'm very proud of and I love about us as the fairer sex, the stronger sex. Um, we're all very different, but we come together and support each other. And I saw these women on set really do. There was a real camaraderie amongst the women, which I was very proud of. And they were really good with me as well as the host. They were very caring and nurturing towards me. You know, occasionally if I'm like, getting a bit hot in here, is it hot? And Bear's like, no. And the women are going, yeah, it's
We
hot.
get it, yeah.
We know we've been through this. We know what it's like. So there's this wonderful camaraderie with women. Particularly, I find as they get older, that you just sort of come in and support each other, and you know what it's like to be a woman, so you can help each other through it. So I really enjoyed hosting from that perspective because I found these women quite inspirational to me.
I love that point that you've raised there, Sam. And I was thinking about a column that you wrote once for Stella where it was about in the aftermath of a Logies, actually. And you were talking about that sort of transparency of everyone saying, here's me getting ready.
Mm.
You know, I'm in hair and makeup for a couple of hours and then really supporting each other and not in a superficial, artificial kind of way, but in a really genuine way that an industry and, let's face it, a culture that has loved to pit women against other women
Mm.
over the years has changed. I would argue, even I think on the some of the younger contestants on reality TV over the years, I noticed that the dynamic shifted a bit. Where even if they were competing, quote unquote, for the prize,
Mm.
you know, the guy,
Mm.
that the women would often become a little less combative with one another as the years went on. And I like to
Yes.
think whether that has social media has helped. God forbid, you know, we acknowledge social media does some good things. I don't know what you think about that because, as I say, with that column that you wrote, it was very much about how just women being a bit more transparent and letting their guard down has
Yes.
allowed us to support one another in a way that maybe we weren't able to do so much
I
publicly.
feel like there's a shift. I mean, I can only really I mean, social media is its own gigantic beast. You know, it's you know, we know social media by now. Some people are great, some people are not, and you just have to tune out the revolting ones. But I feel like there is. I can speak for me personally as a woman that you get to this wonderful age where you know you don't care so much anymore. You're not as it's not even ambition. You're just not as competitive. You're more laid back. This wonderful thing happens to women as you get older. As your estrogen begins to decrease, your tolerance for bullshit begins to decrease too. And it is wonderful. So you just get into this really great cruising scenario where you think, this is me, take me or leave me. You know, I don't care anymore. I'm doing my thing. Life is short. You know, I've been through several things in the past couple of years that have shown me that life is short. So you've got to make the most of it and you've got to make sure you're happy. And the people that don't like you, you just have to keep away from them and you just have to enjoy your life and do your thing. And I think women are, you know, it's a nice time for women my age and the women I know. Um, that this is happening for us. And so to be part of this show where these women were just a little bit older than me, sort of they'd already trodden that path. It was a nice fit. It was a perfect fit. It could not have come to me, this show, at a better time in my life.
I feel like you've always had a fairly strong degree of that. You've always seemed somebody in my interactions with you, what I've observed, that knew who you are, so it had a very strong sense of self and fairly good boundaries around you in terms of putting up with BS. So it's interesting for me to hear that even you have observed that
Oh my
getting a
goodness.
bit easier.
Look, I don't think anyone can master boundaries to, you know, particularly in your younger years when you're busier and you're more easily influenced. And, you know, there's plenty of things in my life that, you know, if I had my time again, I would speak up about more loudly. There was plenty of times when I wasn't strong about my boundaries, um, that I did things that I didn't agree with. That I, you know, I think you would be. not human to be perfect in your younger years like that. And I don't mind that. I think that's what your 20s and 30s are for, making mistakes like that. I love that in your 40s, this sort of power comes to you because what gets you through the next sort of 40 or 50 years is and it's not even a toughness because I feel like you can still hold on to your vulnerability and your femininity, but you just got a lot less tolerance for nonsense and for bullshit. Um, so I've always been incredibly resilient. I've always known my values. I was raised very well. I was raised in the country. I've always um, been very clear about all of that. But there's been plenty of times when perhaps I've appeared more brave and more tough than I really was.
But look, let me ask you about Bear
Yes.
because he is our first Golden Bachelor here in Australia. Now he's 61, he's widowed, father of three. So a lot of that already raises a few talking points. You know, the role of adult children,
Mm,
what role and participation they have in, you know, selecting the right person for their dad. And I'm sure that comes up for some of the women as
mm,
well who have children. The fact that he's a widower, as you're talking about, Sam, there's obviously poignant moments in the show. And again, whatever people's experience, whatever's brought them there, most people have gone through a fair bit of heartbreak and adversity
yeah.
by the time you get to 61. Obviously, if
Mm,
he has lost his wife, then
mm,
clearly he's gone through that.
mm.
Tell us a little bit about him, your observations of him, and what you think uh, audiences will make of him.
I think Bear is a very good man. He sort of stood out to me right from the start, and Nine and Warner Brothers brought me into the casting right at the beginning, which I've never done before in my career. It was really flattering to be included in that and be part of it. So I got to meet some of the men who were vying for this role because it is a big role, this inaugural, but there's a lot of pressure on Bear. Um, and he's wonderful. He's a good man. I mean, he's obviously handsome and all of that stuff, but um, beyond that, I think he's a very decent man. I really like the fact that his sons, well, he very much consulted with his sons are now, I think his youngest son is at university. So this is why Bear himself said, it's my time now. He's raised three boys pretty much on his own. His wife died when the youngest one was quite young. So it is a tragic story. He has really been to rock bottom. I mean, he's experienced one of the worst things anyone could ever go through in a marriage. Um, and so he's got this enormous um, understanding of emotion, which is good for a man. He knows grief, which I think is also
Mm.
quite valuable in as an adult human to have been to some low places because then you just makes you a little bit more of it makes you a little bit of a better person, I think, to have just a few sort of nicks out of your JUCO.
Can
I
give you a
think
bit
if
of empathy too.
a lot of empathy. So he's a very kind man. Um, so I met two of his three sons. They were very, very, no, I'm going to sound like my mother here, but they were very nice young men. So he's done a good job with his boys, which I think is a really nice reflection on him. And he was just easy to work with. He was very charming. He was very sweet, good natured, happy to help out. He's quite a gentleman. Um, I think Australia will really love getting to know him.
I know I'm not even going to ask you things about, you know, does he end up with somebody? All of the questions that you're going to
Because I
get asked,
can't
because
tell
I know
you.
that you can't answer them. But I don't know if you can answer this one more broadly. In terms of his story and how that resonates with the women on the show, I imagine that gives him a vulnerability, and also the audience at home will be cheering along for somebody that has
Mm.
gone through, as you say, the worst thing that somebody can experience in a marriage. Is there also a degree, do you think, of pressure that comes with that?
Well, I didn't see that from my perspective, but I mean, I think that's the thing that changes dating at this in this age group is that let's use the word baggage because everyone's going to know what I'm talking about, and I mean it kindly. But at in your 50s and 60s, you do have baggage, whether you like it or not. And if you don't, I'd be more worried because
Red
it's,
flag.
yeah,
Great.
exactly. So you want a man at that age to have a little bit of baggage. Um, so I think, there's that thing that women do with men often where they want to nurture. And I think the reaction when they found out, the ladies found out Bear's story was like, oh my God, oh, this poor man. So there's an element of that, yes. Um, but these ladies have also, as I said, one of the ladies said, I don't want to be a nurse or a purse. They don't, they're also really strong and in their own power. So they're not just going to go in there and, try and mother him. They're there for themselves too, which I really love. That's what they're there for. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of things that these women had to take into account, like their own children and their own grandchildren, where they live and how you put your lives together at that age. So yes, there was a lot of focus on that.
I find it fascinating, Sam, how you were involved in casting Bear. How was that process? Because obviously, once the show starts filming, there's obviously an aspect of letting people go.
Yes.
There's only so many. I'm going to ask about roses in a moment. If there's
Yeah.
roses, there's only so many roses to go around. I imagine that felt a little bit like that, did it? Helping assess the potential people for Australia's first Golden Bachelor. uh, were there other people that you think could be, good for a series down the track? Were you involved in having to break any of the bad news to them? As in, I'm
No.
sorry, you didn't get a rose, or we
No.
leave that to the
The
like
beauty of
casting.
being the host and not a producer is that you don't have to break any bad news. Oh no, I don't, no, I never have to break any bad news. Um, no, it was nice to be involved in that, and I think it was important to the producers and to Nine that Bear and I, that the Golden Bachelor and I got on, and that there was that 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 would work from a hosting Golden Batchy perspective. Um, so yeah, it was nice to be part of that. I mean, this is how these shows work. You've got to you cast for people and people apply, and then the one that's right on the day is chosen. So it was interesting for me to be part of that. After all these years I've done in TV, it's about time.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's amazing that it's taken that long for you to be involved in that sort of way,
Yeah.
given everything that you've learned throughout your career.
Well, I think that's why Nine wanted to put me in there is because of my journalistic background and because I do, have an ability to be a storyteller. So that is my role in this show. So I think Nine wanted to see that, I could chat to whoever was the Golden Bachelor, which obviously Bear and I got on really well. So he was a no-brainer. He was the obvious choice.
And of course, because you're Samantha Armytage, if you walk the red carpet at the Logies with Bear, then everyone will go, oh my gosh, they're dating. And of course, I think those headlines took, I don't know, 2.5 minutes to get published.
Yes.
You've obviously already called it out and said, have you met me? I stand
Yes.
beside a man. Of course, I'm dating him.
And how long have we known each other? A long time. And how many times have I been connected to a man that just because I've stood next to? In fact, quite recently, I took a friend of mine to the races and he's gay. And they said we were dating. I was like, okay, right, this is a new one. Okay. So the beauty of the stories around me in the tabloids is that no one believes anything. So it's quite good. I can get away with blue murder.
I know, because when I saw those headlines, look, I will just say again, I knew it wasn't true, but also I thought, well, that's not very helpful because, like, what about the women on the show?
Oh, I
Like,
think, but
they're
no one
thinking,
believes it, do they?
oh, look, I doubt it, Sam. I mean,
No,
look, to me, it seems like a punchline, but I was going to ask, are you surprised by that? But I think that would be like,
no,
sort of like,
I'm not surprised. In fact, I actually was surprised it took so long for people to start writing that kind of stuff because, as we know, there's a lot of interest in my love life at all times. But no, it was, of course, as soon as I signed up to do this show, I thought, oh, here we go. This, of course, will happen around me.
mm-hmm.
But no, I promise you, Sarah, I have not been dating the Golden Bachelor. I would never do that to the ladies, and I'm sure any of the ladies out there who saw that would have just laughed it off. I'm totally sure of it.
So, Sam, we've already talked a little bit about this show coming into your life at the perfect time. So, if I can then just acknowledge what is probably a bit of an elephant in the room, which is that your own marriage has ended.
Mm.
You were married to Richard Lavender at the end of 2020, and then you and I last sat down a couple of years ago while you were helming Farmer Wants a Wife, and we talked a lot about that time, about parts of that show mirroring your own life, and now here we are 2 years later. There's a little bit of an art imitating life or vice versa. You confirmed at the end of last year that you and Richard had separated, was very amicable, but as we all know, these things, of course, as you said, are never easy. The can I ask you to expand a little bit upon that aspect of this art imitating life? Because it does feel, whatever people believe in, universe, coincidence, maybe none of the above, the symmetry of that part of your life coinciding with Farmer Wants a Wife and then now Golden Bachelor. I mean, you're younger than the contestants, but does it feel like it's mirroring parts of your own
Well,
life that it wouldn't have a
I
couple
hadn't
of years
actually
ago?
thought of it that way, but perhaps you might be better to talk to TV executives about that kind of that art imitating life. But look, what I'll say for my marriage was that um, we gave it a go. It didn't work out, and so we move on. I think there's a lot of people out there in a similar position. Um, so, I find myself now in this great new world. And last year, 2024 was a big year. There was a lot of change and a lot of grief. And you know, d- d- uh, starting with the loss of my dog Banjo, who I know a lot of people listening to this will know. Banjo, he was my baby, so that was an enormous grief. Um, then I had a total hip replacement, so huge health issues, and literally had to learn to walk again after that. Then I left my marriage. Then I renovated a house from my hospital bed, and then I changed TV networks. I changed jobs, which again is huge. So much change, so much grief. Um, but I think out of that, I have moved into 2025 in such a great and positive way that I'm quite proud of myself, and I'm incredibly happy. I feel like life is good, and I feel like this is sort of my act two. Like I get another go here, and I think Channel 9 saw that and offered me a great opportunity, which I took. And so, yeah, that's perhaps the art imitating life. It's that Nine saw it before I did. They're like, okay, here she is. We'll work with her. So it's great.
I know when we were talking about Farmer Wants a Wife, you were saying with being part of that show, everyone was asking you to set them up
Mm,
with farmers.
mm.
Um, and of course, as you say, country girl. Now that you're in the Golden Bachelor era, what are you anticipating your own circle of friends and maybe the women of Australia sliding into your DMs? What are they going to be asking you
They already are.
advice for
The
now?
show hasn't even gone to air yet, and everybody is asking me to find them. As I say, it gets harder as you get older. Everyone's asking me to find them an older man. I'm like, hey, whoa, stop. I'm worrying about me now. No, we'll worry about the show first. Yes, definitely. Wherever I go in television, um, you know, people stop me in the street and ask for my help to fix their lives. so,
Sam
so
Armytage matchmaker.
Cupid, I've
Get some
become
little. You
Cupid,
have become
which is
Cupid.
incredible.
But are there I know that the women are older, but for me, so I went through a marriage separation a couple of years ago. And that's, I think, also partly why I'm so interested in this, just because I think I would have found it fascinating anyway, because you don't need to be in your 20s and dating to find The Bachelor interesting,
Mm.
the other series. But I think there's just other aspects of life resonate with you, even though the women were slightly older. Were there parts of their experience that resonated with you,
Mm.
particularly now that you're single again?
Definitely. And I don't think anybody leaves a marriage without thinking it through quite deeply. You don't just decide one day and then leave the next. So there was a lot of elements in what the ladies were saying about the thought process behind it, um, and the grief of leaving and looking at your life and saying, where do I go to from here? And the enormous change, and so I there was certainly elements of that resonated. Um, there, I mean, there's at the end of this is the thing, we're all we're all human. We've all got these things these thoughts and these fears and these happy moments that we all share. They're not exclusive to men or women. We're all in this together. And so yes, there's a lot of things that resonated with me, and I think will resonate with the women of Australia deeply, because I think these are things that a lot of women go through, and a lot of women on the show would speak about their marriages ending and how their overwhelming concern was for their children. That was the first thing that they panicked. That was the thing that brought them to tears usually, which I was so devastated for them, that was the common thread for these women, that they and makes me so proud that women put their children before everything else, and even their own grief and their own utter heartbreak. So that was really powerful. I think there's a lot of women in Australia who will hear that and see that and go, "Oh my God, that's me." So I think that's where the power in this show comes from.
No, I think, and that's why I really genuinely, like, I wasn't just saying it. I really think that uh, seeing stories reflected back
Mm.
at women as they grow older is so important, because it's really just shining a mirror, saying
Oh,
it's not like there is, okay, curtain drops,
yes.
everything's over now. We may have been treated that way
Mm.
as a gender in the past, but all the feelings and the joy and the heartache and the hope and the complexity and the drama and all of it, the good and the bad, still
It's all
continues.
in there. And this is what I love about this show and what I'm proud of is that there is all the crap that you gather through life, but there is real optimism, and there is real hope, and there is love, and there is romance, um, and it's fun. I love that. Bear said the other day some of the dates that he went on you couldn't have dreamed up in a million years. Even for him, it was so romantic. Like, it's a really great escape, this show. I think it's just what we need right now.
Did you get to play a role in any of that? Like, do you sort of help create some of these dates?
Well, I did suggest one day. I mean, it's the Bachelor franchise, so we're quite limited with what we can do. But there was one, as I'm an ambassador for Guide Dogs Australia, there was one date that I said, look, and we're trying to find puppy raisers for the guide. There's a whole lot of pups that have been litters that have been born, and um, do you want some really cute puppies? And so there was a date involving Labrador puppies that is the cutest and most romantic thing you'll ever see. So I make little suggestions, but I never really expect them to be acknowledged.
I mean, could imagine it would take a harder heart than mine to not fall in love with somebody, that was what you were walking
I
into on a
know,
date.
I know.
Honestly, cute puppies. I asked about the rose before. Are there the rose
Mhm.
ceremonies? Do you, Samantha Armytage, are you, involved in helping sort of oversee the rose
Yes.
ceremony,
I
gather
very much
everyone?
am. I am at the rose ceremonies. Bear decides who the roses go to, but yes, I mean it's very much the original Bachelor format. Um, we've just changed it up a little bit. But yeah, the roses are still there. There's still the jeopardy. But that's all Bear's decision.
Did Osher give you any tips on that once, back again when I was in my digital opinion editor era? We did a supercut of all the times he'd said that, because, once you're sort of in that role for a few years, and then there's the different spin-offs like Bachelorette and
Yeah.
things, he had said that line
Yes.
so many times.
Yes. And it's heartbreaking. It can be quite brutal, this game. But yeah, I mean, look, it's that's what it is, and everyone is there of their own free will, and so we make it as sort of as empathetic and sympathetic as possible. But at the end of the day, that's the show. It's got to get down to the final two and then the final one. So yes, it's always a shame, and it was a big move, but it was it's a good show.
I mean, as you say, Sam, you've been in this industry for 25 years. And when I say this industry, as we've already talked about, you have been a reporter, you've obviously been anchoring breakfast television for many years, you have hosted other primetime shows over the years. Then you moved to Nine, did a little bit of breakfast TV, filled in over the summer, and now the Golden Bachelor. So, one of the obvious questions would be, do you miss working in news? And you've often already answered that question throughout the course of our conversation to
Mm.
date, in that you're drawn to the storytelling aspect, which is universal, but
Mm.
also sometimes you just different opportunities come up in different paces of your life. I mean, it is relentless, the news cycle,
Mm.
and getting up and doing breakfast TV, well documented how relentless that is. So, how are you feeling about the projects that you choose at this time in your life?
Well, I'm feeling very happy about the projects that I choose, and it's a really nice time in your life when you can choose things. And I like the evolution of my career. That now I find myself in these primetime shows. It's good fun and it's good experience. I'd never done anything like this before, and production is a lot slower. I mean, I had all those years, 20 years of live television where you don't get to do 20 takes and you make a mistake. It's just live. And that's quite stressful, but also quite fun. I mean, I had some really fabulous, fun, extraordinary experiences hosting Sunrise and Weekend Sunrise and working in news. I've had the most extraordinary career so far, and I've loved it. Um, and I'm internally grateful to Sunrise. It was a wonderful 10 years of my life hosting that show. um but now I move on, and so I find myself in this great spot at a great network. I'm working now in an entertainment company, so it's very different culturally to a TV network. So there's lots of opportunities. Nine obviously has Stan and radio and newspapers, so it's a totally different scenario, and I'm loving the opportunity that comes with that, and just a fresh, just a change. Like it was. I did 21 years at Seven, which was great, and now it's nice to have just a fresh start for me.
It would be an annoying question from me to say, well, Golden Bachelor is airing, hasn't even gone to air yet. And what next, Sam? But of course, I'm an annoying journalist, so I would ask that question. Just as you're talking about all of the different arms of Nine, are there other projects that you can either talk about, but just even if not, a little more uh, subtly, just other areas of the industry that got your eye?
Well, there's a few exciting things coming up over summer at Nine. We've got Melbourne Cup Carnival coming up, which will be great. So Nine's got all this fabulous sport, which I just think is so exciting. I'm so proud of the network that it's the place to be. Um, Olympics coming up in the next few years, Rugby World Cup. There's the golf, there's the tennis, there's rugby league. There's so much. It's really exciting. What we maybe used to film in 3 months, you now film in half the time. So the logistics of the business of television. So that's pretty frantic. Um, and then we'll just see. I'm kind of just open to what's coming next. It's quite a nice time in your life to not. I try not to plan too much because, um, what do they say? If you want to make God laugh, make a plan or
Tell,
something. Whatever.
yeah, tell him your
Yeah, I think
plans.
I've
Yeah,
butchered
or
that.
tell her your
Yeah,
plans.
tell her
Yeah.
your plans. And that has been totally the way for my whole career. I always thought I'd be doing this by 28 and this by 35, and none of it's gone to plan. But it's all been so much better.
As I say, your first role on the Nine was on the Today Show, because Golden Bachelor is the first big series. But since you signed with the network, as you're just talking about everything that sort of happened last year,
Mm.
was you did a little bit of filling in over summer, while Carl Stefanovic and Sarah Arbo were on at leave. How was that experience? I mean, just even logistically, how did you feel when that alarm went off for the first time at 3 a.m.? Or are you getting up every morning at 3 a.m.? How did it feel to get
No.
back in there?
It was a little weird, yes. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't, because obviously studios are different, people are different, the way they write their script, with the way that Sunrise and Today Show write their scripts is all the little details that you become used to when you host a show every day. Um, it was fun. The alarm did not bother me because it was only a few weeks. So that's easy, but it's when it's every day that it gets to you. But it was a great experience, and I miss that sort of adrenaline of daily news, um, and obviously, as I say, I had so much fun hosting Sunrise for all those years, and it was really lovely to fill in at Today's Show, and I think the network considered me a safe pair of hands, that I knew what I was doing with a show like that. So that was very flattering, and it was good fun.
But you wouldn't have any interest in taking it up where the alarm was going off at that time for more than a couple
I
of
am
weeks.
completely happy to just stay in prime time for now with the alarms going off at reasonable hours like 6 a.m. I mean, getting up for all those years at 3 o'clock in the morning is really hard. It's really affects your social life very badly. And it's also very hard on your body. So I don't necessarily miss that. But no, it's a great, breakfast TV is fun, really fun.
Are you still quite plugged into the news cycle yourself? I
No.
mean, no.
No, at the moment, I'm really not. And I had this conversation with my sister who lives in London the other day. She was talking about Keir Starmer. And I said, Georgie, I just can't even. I can't. For the first time in 30 years, I think I'm actively avoiding the news. I find it too much at the moment. It's just so depressing in every way. So I've sort of removed myself. I'm very choosy about what I watch and listen to, which I always have been. But there was a day when I had to, for my job, watch everything, know everything. I
Mhm.
came out of the press gallery in Canberra, where those stories, those press gallery journos are so brilliant, and they know every trade deal, they know the history of every. And then you step out of that, and you all of a sudden realize, you feel like, oh my god, I've got no idea what's going on. Um, but it's quite nice to step out of it at the moment, because I think it was always exhausting, but it's really exhausting right now.
It is. And I think when something becomes intertwined with your life and
Mm,
your career, it it starts to feel like work.
mm,
So all journos sort of live and breathe
mm.
news
Yes.
cycle. But then if you're on holidays or you're stepping away from that, focusing on other aspects of your career, looking on new projects as you have, there can be real respite that comes from thinking, man, I had to be plugged in for a
Oh,
long
yes.
time.
And I also think, I mean, this is a very different era now. Like, I think, Trump as president has sped everything up. This news cycle that used to be, we used to complain about 24/7, is now changing by the hour so dramatically. And I think that's a lot of adrenaline for journos these days to keep up with that. I take my hat off to them, because that's exhausting. I mean, that's so changeable and so hyperactive and so completely and utterly exhausting. So I'm quite happy to sort of lie low and host host a massive reality show.
Well, that was another question I wanted to ask about was then, apart from being a consumer of news, being the subject of endless headlines and speculation. And that's something that you have been at the center of for a very long time. Has
Mm,
that abated a little bit? I know I've asked you about this the last time that we spoke, and the answer was a little bit, but not really.
mm,
Now, of course, as you say, you're about to helm this new primetime show there's a lot of interest in. So that means I'm sure that the media interest will rev up again, but also just given what is happening in your personal life, even when it is nothing, even when you are standing on red carpet with essentially a colleague
mm.
in bed, that's going to be speculation. Are you feeling like you're as much of a media uh, target as you always have been?
Well, I feel like I do get my fair share of attention, which didn't sit very well with me for a long time, as you well know. We've spoken about this before. Um, and that was part of the reason I stepped out of Sunrise and I stepped out of the limelight. It was too much. And I've had a good break now. And I think it's interesting the level of attention because obviously when you're back on air, I can still go to the supermarket without any makeup on and lead a reasonably low key life. And then when you're back on air, the interest, increases again. Um, what I will say is that people, viewers, the general public are so wonderful. And so people will still sort of, I use Woolworths as the great, indicator of society when I'm shopping in Woolies, and people will just stop me and have a chat and say, "Oh, we miss you on Sunrise," or "Oh, we can't wait for the Golden Bachelor." Oh, or they'll ask about Farmer. I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that anymore." They're like, "Oh, what's now?" So I think I love that people still approach me and feel like they know me, um, which they did. For all those years, I was in their lounge room every morning. So there's a familiarity that comes from that, which you have to accept, and is quite lovely. And I know we focus on the idiots on social media, the trolls, but most people out there are really sweet and caring and lovely. And I feel like coming into a primetime show, I'm kind of getting a bit more of that vibe. It's quite nice.
Well, I wanted to, before I finish up, just wanted to ask about we've talked a lot about the pace of the life shift in career direction. Are you spending most of your time in the city now? Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you for address, a location on your GPS, but just generally, because you and I again have discussed over the years, you're a country girl, there's obviously that slower pace of life in the city, in the country. You lived there during COVID, for
Mm,
instance.
mm.
And now a lot of people have moved back to the city that were
Yes.
living there during COVID.
Yeah.
Where are you at the moment, and what is that sort of saying about the rhythm of your life right now?
I go between the city and the country, which I'm very lucky to be able to do. I still have my garden. I still love my garden, and I think that is a really nice balance for me. It's quite important to me that country girl thing is still in me, and it always will be. But so my garden is very precious to me that I have time there just to relax, because when you're filming, it's very busy and very urban, and so it's nice to have that balance. So I'm still all about trying to find a balance, which I don't think anyone ever really does, but let's give it a go. So I go between. I have the best of both worlds, and um, I don't. I think I probably am not cut out to live in the city full time. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that these days, but I'm certainly still country girl at heart.
If you can do the balance, then that's
Hmm.
great. The eternal quest for balance. My final question, you turn 50 next year. I mean, it's a whole year away, but as you sort of look forward to that decade, because again, we've covered a lot of this. I think that visibility and viability of women, and just genuinely a moment in time where I like to think, without sounding too rose colored glasses, that we are a bit kinder to women
Hmm.
of all ages, but
Hmm.
hopefully particularly to women that,
Hmm.
are privileged enough to get beyond 25 and 30. Yeah, so crystal ball time for you. How are you feeling about that 50th birthday?
About the 50th birthday, I'm a little apprehensive. Any birthday that ends in a zero is a hard one to get through, but I know I will be surrounded by friends and family, who I know really love and support me, because I'm at a point in my life now where that's my close knit group, which is great. That's been a real learning curve and a great experience too. So I'm optimistic and um, and looking forward, and I'm actually feeling quite calm about the next decade, because I think we already, thank God, we're in a better era. To all the women who came before us, thank you, um, because it is different now for women. It's much easier to keep going, as it should be, but it wasn't always like this. And I feel personally inside myself, I feel very content, and I feel like I've never been more fit. I've never been healthier, um, and I feel really strong. And also, I've got my shit together. So life is good, and I think the next decade's only going to get better.
I think that answer has partly answered what my final question was going to be, which was I can't do justice to some of the things that you've spoken about that have happened over the last 5 years, including Banjo. Beautiful
Beautiful
Banjo, who
banjo.
was photographed with you in Stella
I
when he was a
know.
little
He
puppy.
was my baby.
And then the big career changes. And of course, your beautiful mum, Libby, who you
Mm.
and I have spoken about before, passing away in 2020. And then, uh, you know, new network, new job, getting married, separating. It's been a lot.
Mm.
You look and seem really well. Now
Mm.
that's a bit flippant, but you do. You, as your last answer has, I think, attested, you
Mm.
seem like you're in a really good place in your life.
Yeah.
All of everything that you've been through this past 5 years, the best of times, the worst of times, I'm sure a hell of a lot in between that not even the biggest clickbaity website in Australia has been able to document every minute of it. How are you feeling at this point in your life as you and I are sitting here?
Well, this is the beauty of having all these miles on your tires. You do get, these nicks out of you. You do go through things that knock you around, losing a mother, um, the enormous grief of, and then sort of having to learn how to mother yourself to a degree, even in your late 40s, and I know you've been through this. It's this extraordinary thing that you all of a sudden have to sort of grow up and think, um, I'm an adult now and I've got to deal with stuff. And my life, which had been sailing along for a long time quite easily and very, very, I was very lucky for a long time, and then things weren't so lucky. But that's okay because that is life, and I got through it. And sometimes you need to go through the the grief and the bad times to build up again and get strong. So I'm not sorry any of that stuff happened. It was a lot in a few short years, but I feel like I've come through it sort of better than ever. And I'm a different person. I'm the same person, but I'm different, and I'm proud of that. And I kind of like that I carry with me now, um, a few of these scrapes and bruises and bumps because they're what makes you more interesting. And probably better as a journalist or as a human, to be able to tell stories or to be able to just be a friend or a sister or a um, cousin or whatever you are, and just to be a better person because you've just got more of an understanding of life.
I love it. Sam, it's been such a delight to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time
It's
and
so
for
lovely to
coming
see you,
in.
my old editor.
I know, I know. It's just, I mean, I think about, those tires. I mean, we have traveled a lot of that
I
road
know,
together, and
I
it's
know.
been a real
And it
privilege.
was usually me sending you messages going, "I'm so sorry, my column's so late."
Don't worry. From one journo that always likes to sail very
Files
close
late.
to deadline to another. Don't worry. I totally hear you. And I really am looking forward to The Golden Bachelor, and it premieres on October 20 at 7:30 on Channel 9 and 9 Now.
Sarah, thank you for all your support always and today, and for promoting the show. You will enjoy it, I promise you. And it's lovely to see you again.
It's lovely to see you as well. Thanks again, Samantha Armytage.